So,
Yes, welcome everyone, and to this webinar. Finally, we are go. We had some issues with the technology. We are divers, apparently not that perfect with Teams, which we should be, but we are getting better and better. My name is Marcin. I'm from Real Diving, and I would like to welcome you to this webinar with Alex Dawson on the subjects of deep wrecks of Gallipoli Peninsula in Turkey. I am in the Real Diving headquarters on the Swedish West Coast. Alex is, as I believe, on the Swedish East Coast of Sweden, but he can confirm that himself. Just a quick one. Alex is a Swedish award-winning underwater photographer. Most of it, Alex is a passionate diver with the passion for the wrecks, for the caves, and for the mines. We had some delay, so with no further ado, I would like to give word to Alex to tell a bit more about himself and introduce us to the amazing underwater world around the Gallipoli Peninsula. Word is yours, Alex.
Hello, Marcin. Hello, everyone. Thank you for coming to this webinar. Happy to see so many people. Yes, I'm going to talk about the Gallipoli historical dive site today in Turkey. It's in the Dardanelles Strait. But first, just a little quick, who am I? So you get to know why I am talking about this. So I was born and raised in Stockholm, Sweden, and I started my diving career already in 1993. Did lots of tropical diving and warm water diving, worked as a dive master in Spain and in Egypt, and also on the west coast of Sweden. A couple of years later, in 2006-07, I got in contact with some deep sea wreck divers in Stockholm, Sweden. And I started diving with them, starting doing lighter trimix, open circuit and stuff, even though the whole team was on rebreathers. But I had my hesitation against this units because at that point in 2006, people were still dying quite a lot on rebreathers. In 2010, with the same team, I got the opportunity to photograph and document and salvage the world's oldest champagne from a wreck outside Åland in the Baltic Sea, where we recovered close to 180 bottles, where I think 90 of them were in really mint condition.
How did you get into diving and tech diving?
Yeah, so I got into tech diving through this group in Stockholm of tech divers, and I was basically non-tech diver then, but they told me what to do, which classes I should take, and we started doing light trimix diving, what you say, recreational trimix, and then sooner or later it became Tech 1. So we photographed a lot of wrecks around the Baltic Sea down to a depth of 65 meters. But like I said, I had my hesitations about rebreather, even though everybody else was on rebreathers. In 2015, I got a fantastic offer or actually I decided that it's time for me to try rebreather diving. First time I tried it, I didn't love it, but I decided I'm still gonna do the class. I purchased my first unit, and since I started diving rebreather, there's no turning back for me. I think rebreather makes me safer in so many ways. It's more comfortable. Yes, it's slightly more prep work before and slightly more prep work after, but I think it's totally worth all that hassle because of all the benefits you get with a rebreather. And for me, it just makes me feel even more safe underwater. And one of the nicest things is that there's no bubbles to disturb your photography.
How the photography get involved into your diving?
Yeah, so the photography actually started already in my scuba diving year. So already in 1993, when I started diving, is when I rented my first camera, and I accidentally took one great picture on the first roll with my first Motomarine 2 from CNC. In 1995, I got my first compact camera from Motomarine, and I used that for many years, and I had a couple of successful shots. But in 1999, I decided to move on to the real world of cameras. So I got my first Nikon F90X and competed in the Swedish Championship of Underwater Photography and became Rookie of the Year that year. So, and that's really how my journey started in the photography business. A few years later, I started freelancing for the Swedish dive magazine Dyk, and a couple of years later, I have had covers on basically every dive magazine around the world with images from wrecks and sharks and stuff like that. So it went pretty fast from I started diving until I started getting published worldwide. So that was very fantastic. Then a few years after that, I had kids, so I took a little break in diving and stuff like that. But then, yeah, in 2015, like I said, I started the rebreather diving, and that got me totally re-hooked on diving again. And yeah, I would never choose to dive without a rebreather if I have the opportunity to use it these days.
Thanks for the short introduction.
Yeah.
Yes. Let's go on cracking on with the webinar.
Yes, sure. So this year, earlier this year, I was awarded with overall winner in the Underwater Photographer of the Year competition that takes place in London every year. And I got the grand title with this image from Eastern Greenland. It's taken under the pack ice with my friend Anda von Böttischer from Germany. She's a German freediver who doesn't mind the cold. She's in a 5mm wetsuit in this -2-degree cold water. And we're diving on a place close to a small village called Tassilak, which is called Flenseplassen, where the local fishermen brings a couple of minke whales every year to take the meat, the blubber, the skins. They use everything but the bones. In general, I'm against commercial whale hunting, but for this people who lives in Eastern Greenland, it's a small population. It's less than 5,000 people living in like 7 small settlements. So they bring in about 10 minke whales per year, and this is out of a population of over 100,000 minke whales. And it's super essential for them to be able to live there because the blubber is food for the dogs to survive the extremely cold winters. And yeah, once I got down there and I saw all these whale bones in this one place, it was pretty scary because I was down alone first, and it was very dark also under the 1 meter thick ice with lots of snow on top of it. So it took a few minutes before your eyes adjusted and you started seeing these big white piles of bones all over the seafloor.
As it is an amazing picture, it's so many things into it, but let's go to the Turkey.
Yes. So a few years ago, or I should say about 1 year ago, I got an invitation from the directorate of the Gallipoli Historical Underwater Park to come and document their deeper wrecks because they have decided, or the government had decided, to open up the Dardanelles Strait for technical diving for tourists. It's been closed, it's all been military, and now it's open for everyone to come and go there. They're building an infrastructure to be able to host big groups of technical divers, and hopefully within a few months, by the beginning of 2025, they should be able to take lots of divers to come and visit this fantastic World War I wrecks. I'm going to take you through some of them, but as you can see on this map here is that every little dive flag is a huge part of history in the First World War. And all the wrecks are, of course, also very untouched since it's been closed for divers to dive. Only the military has been on them. So one of the first wrecks that we dove in Dardanelles is a Minesweeper. There's 5 similar ships of this, so they don't know which one this is exactly by name. It's 46 meters long, 7 meters wide, and it lays at around 57 meters depth. It's a beautiful wreck. Usually the visibility at this wreck, conditions here are usually fantastic. Many of the wrecks in Gallipoli can be very, very strong currents, but usually just in the surface. So as soon as you get down to 3 meters, sometimes down to 15 meters, the current totally stops, and then you have a beautiful, beautiful dive. Water temperatures varies between, I would say, 17 to 19 at depth, maybe 16 early spring. And the deco temperatures can also vary anything from 21 to, I would say, all the way up to 25, 26 probably. So it's a very, very nice place to dive. This is also the Minesweeper from bird's view. And as you can see, it's full of yellow sponges and lots of growth on the wreck. There's a couple of ghost nets on the wreck. At the moment, they're gonna stay. The marine biologist and everybody is discussing whether they should keep it or not, because lots of them has a lot of unique growth of them on them at the moment. So at the moment, they're figuring out what to do next with this. Here's the aft part of the wreck, and it sits upright perfectly. Single prop steamship, and a little small building in the back where you can access the engine room and you can access some crew quarters, etc. Here is the bow of the ship, which is totally covered in nets, and also the cargo hold, or one of the upper front cargo hold is on this right picture. Another very interesting wreck is HMS Hythe. It sits in 76 meters depth, and it's, or 250 feet if you're imperial. It's 80 meters long, 13 meters wide. It's kind of blown up a little bit in the cargo holds just behind the bow, so the bow stands up very alone and majestic in the sea. It's massive from the bottom to the top. The wreck is 13 meters wide, and it was sunk on October 28 in 1915. And it was sunk during a collision with HMS Hythe, and unfortunately 154 sailors lost their lives on this one. Here's where the bridge would be, and it's a little bit collapsed in that area, but you can still enter into the cargo holds, which has there's not a lot of movement of the water there, so there's white bottoms, and but there's lots of details in the mud and in the sand. On one place in all the debris, I managed to find a totally perfect hurricane lamp. Like, it was totally intact, everything. It was about 40 centimeters high. Really, really beautiful piece of history there, buried in the bottom. So very, very interesting. The next wreck was one of the highlights of the trip that I was really looking forward to. It's the SMS Midilli. It sits at 74 meters depth, 253 feet, and it's a German Magdeburg class cruiser. Very powerful gunship from the First World War. Originally, it was equipped with 12 cannons. I think they were 105 millimeter cannons, 12 of them. After it got rebuilt and changed name to Midilli, it was equipped with 8 cannons, if I'm not mistaken. She was sunk in January 1918 by mines. unfortunately. This wreck is huge. It's 139 meters long and 14 meters wide. And from what I remember, I only did one dive, I think, on this wreck, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah, one dive. And all the cannons, all 8 cannons, are still intact on the ship. So these massive cannons, some of them are pointing out straight out towards the sides, and some are kind of alongside with the ship. Also towards the aft of the ship, there was a little crew compartment where I swam into a corridor, and in there was beautifully wooden carved doors that had this amazing detail and a beautiful ornate key sitting in the door still. And so there's so much beautiful detail in this wrecks, and especially if you would penetrate them and go in and do longer dives. We were a little bit limited this time because we had to push through so many wrecks in a very short amount of time. So we didn't do very, very long bottom times. I think maximum 30 minutes at this depth. Here's the bow of Breslau Midilli. Super majestic.
I see that you're using the DPVs. Is that because of the current? Are you using them as well for carrying the photo equipment, the lights? Can you just mention that?
So DPVs were definitely used on all dives. The surface current in this region is very, very strong, or can be very, very strong. Like I said, sometimes down to 15, 20 meters. Last time we were there, it was only surface current for the first 2 meters. So it was almost easier just grabbing everything in your hands and just dip down to 2 meters and then attach everything at 2 meters depth instead. The scooters are for many reasons. Since we only did one dive on each wreck in the first session, we had to try to cover the whole wreck to get an idea what it's like. I think Breslau and Carthage were wrecks where like less than 10 people had died prior to us coming there. So we wanted to make sure that we saw the whole wrecks. So we had to shoot on the fly all the time. And so the DPVs are a fantastic tool to move around and for the safety on the deco and so on. And here, yeah, both images shows cannons. The one to the right, you see the big cannon under the diver. And on the left image, you see one of the cannons pointing out towards the starboard side. This is the aft of Midilli. It's where it got hit by the mine, and you see the big cannon on top in the back, in the aft, still pointing straight backwards. And it's, yeah, I'm sure there's lots of penetration you could do here, but the depth is big, so 74 meters. I mean, you would have to bring extra tanks and stuff in case you get stuck into the wreck or something like that. But there's so much potential in these wrecks. And the bottoms are quite clean. As you can see, there's not much growth or corals or anything on the bottoms. But on the wrecks, which is hit by the currents, there's an abundance of sponges and corals and stuff like that. Like you can see the yellow part on this image. There's another cannon close up, pointing slightly out to the starboard side towards the aft. This was already shot when we were like a little bit over our bottom time and had to kind of shoot it while driving the DPV. And then we have SS Carthage, another fantastic. It's a French passenger ship. It sits at 84 meters, but I think actually it sits at 86 meters, but around 280 feet. It's a beautiful, beautiful structure on this wreck. The wreck from the bottom to the top of the wreck is like 25 meters high. It's super huge superstructure on this. This is not the superstructure you see in this image. This is like the aft structure, which is closer to the aft cargo hold. Where one of the divers, I think it's Reza, who's in and inspecting inside the wreck a little bit. This wreck, SS Carthage, is 140 meters long, and 22 meters wide, and she sunk in July 4th in 1915. And she was also sunk by the submarine U-21. And I think there's at least 4 or 5 wrecks in this region that are all sunk by the U-21. So the U-21 had a very successful session in this region. Here's also by the aft cargo hold at SS Carthage, where the divers are, one is exploring inside and one is kind of lighting up the image for me. This depth on top of the deck here is probably around just under 70 meters, I would say 68 to 70 meters roughly. Here's the bow of Carthage, which is very pointy and very majestic. Unfortunately, the visibility was slightly less good towards the bottom, so it was difficult to get good images of the whole bow from like a lower perspective, but we try to stay above the bottom fog and get some images of the bow. And here you can see the superstructure with at least 3 floors still intact. And this is where we came down. The shot line is just behind the divers. I don't know if you can see it above the second diver. You see a white line going up towards the right corner. And this cargo hold also is super fantastic. I don't have an image in this slideshow, but I have an image of 2 divers going down, exploring there, and it's like 4 levels down basically before they hit the bottom. It's massive, this ship. Really interesting. Here we are on the way back from the aft of the ship when my buddies decided to take the DPVs for a cruise in the inside of the shipwreck instead on the way back, just to see what's available in those parts of the wreck. And there's another image of the aft cargo hold at Carthage. And also some of I think this is where the engine room and the skylight to the engine room is on the right image in the center. We had no time on these first exploration dives to visit any engine rooms or stuff like that. I mean, penetration is for future diving in the area. I mean, these all pictures that you see now, they're all taken during one dive. So it's and at these depths with the short bottom times, it's not much you can do. And here the divers are going towards the bow of SS Carthage. Yeah, so those are the deep wrecks that are available in the region. And of course, there's so much more wrecks in the shallower regions. I'm gonna go back to the map, which was in the beginning here. So these are the wrecks that we explored this time, and there's, like I said, so many more. I'm gonna see if I can get the laser pointer to work. Yeah. So this is Breslau Midilli here in this area. We have HMS Hythe, which is right here. Midilli is the wreck that's furthest away from the port that we departed from. Usually we departed either from a port around this region here, in this region here, or from another port which is slightly further up here. And it was never more than, I think, 40 to 50 minutes runtime by the dive vessel. SS Carthage is right here. We also have HMS Majestic, which is a fantastic wreck, but it's more for the recreational divers. It's in 18 to 23 meters depth. And then, of course, the Minesweeper here at 56 meter. Another wreck that I would have liked to dive is the HMS Triumph, which is very deep also, 72 meters, but it's upside down. So you really have to dive 72 meters the whole dive, and you have to go in under the ship to see everything. We've also done Lundy and HMS Lewis, which are more shallow wrecks, 27 and 13 meters, and also Franco, which is in the Dardanelles Strait. Slightly more green water there, I would say, than on the other places. And I am very, very curious to dive the ocean wreck, of course. And there's many, many more. There's supposed to be some really, really good wrecks out here in the far west also. So there's lots of potential. There's a couple of submarines in the area also. I haven't dove any of them. I know there's one up here. I think there's a submarine, and then there's supposed to be another submarine somewhere here, but this is still on military waters. But I think it will be possible to get special permits to get to these in the future. And like I said, the diving will start in this. We'll be able to go to this region and dive commercially by end of this year or beginning of 2025. And the dive site that you find out more about this region is the top one here, divinggeribildo.com homepage. It's for the Gallipoli Historical Underwater Park website. Also, goturkey.com is another good website to find general information about traveling to Turkey. And if you want to see more of my images of what I do, then you can visit my Instagram at Alex_Dawson_photography to see more of my images. And yeah, that was about the wrecks, Marcin.
Yes, that was about the wrecks. Thank you very much, Alex. I understand that we could show the pictures and talk about that for hours and hours and hours, and it's an amazing place that everyone wants to visit. Can you please, I think we forgot about one thing. I think if someone of people who are here attending, it's if they are attending the Baltic Tech this year. Alex is going to be a speaker on the Baltic Tech talking about.
Yes, I will be talking about Baltic Sea wrecks mainly, but I will also touch the subject of Gallipoli Historical Underwater Park at the Baltic Tech seminar in Gdansk by end of November.
I just double check the date. It's the 23rd and 24th of the November in Gdynia. I think it's
Gdynia.
Yeah, if you are interested in wrecks, in technical diving, rebreather diving, the mines, the caves, the Baltic Tech is not just about the Baltic Sea wrecks, which are amazing though. So please visit the conference, and it's a really good one. If anyone has any questions to Alex, now is the time to ask them. So we can wait a couple of minutes and see if there's anything.
I see people raising their hands, Marcin, but I don't know if you get those notifications.
They are clapping. They are happy. They are sending the clapping hands. That's amazing pictures. I have the questions from Yassar, and he's asking, how did you find the guidance from the Turkish divers underwater, especially on the deeper wrecks? How did you like it?
We had a fantastic dive team. We were 4 to 5 divers on every dive, and I think the teamwork worked out perfectly. They're very, very skilled divers. They're on rebreathers. I think that they still need some infrastructure to be able to support larger groups. Let's say if you want to be 4 teams of tech divers, but by the beginning of 25, they should be able to take about 6 technical divers, 2 dive teams basically, for making up to 4 or 5 hour long dives. at all these different wrecks. And another thing, I actually forgot to add that to this, but they have placed large buoys on each of the dive sites. So they all have fixed moorings, even the ones that 80, 90 meters have moorings. The larger wrecks further outside, they have 4,000 liter moorings. So very, very sturdy moorings, and the inner wrecks and the more shallow ones have 2,000 liter moorings, which are huge buoys and can support quite big vessels to support, yeah, while you're diving, which is extremely helpful because of the strong currents.
Yes, we have some questions popping out, both the questions. Let's start with the one from Peter. Do they mapping the floor, the sea floor all the time, or do they know all the wrecks? Is it kind of like the area is mapped by the military and now they have everything, or is it still new wrecks coming out?
New wrecks coming out all the time, whether it's that they are mapping the floor or if it's that the military is releasing new positions to the directorate, I cannot answer that. But there's constantly new wrecks coming. Already, first time we came to Gallipoli, it was in May this year, and already by August, second visit, they had already a few new wrecks, and they had put a couple of more buoys out on the wrecks. So they're working really fast. They're really trying to make this one of the best sites in the world for World War wreck diving from World War One. I can tell you, the wrecks has great potential. So it's a really interesting area. And of course, Turkey, the food there is like amazing. So what's not to like? And people are warm and friendly, and yeah, nice climate.
Thank you. I had update from Murahan that Gallipoli Historical Underwater Park is going to attend by Baltic Tech as well. So that would be really good. We will meet them and then we will have time to chat more, maybe record some webinars. Amazing, great to get you guys there. And now we are coming to some of the more technical questions. Julie is wondering a bit about your diving gear. What are you using? What kind of camera you have? And tell us a bit more about that. Not into the super details. We don't have 3 hours, but take it a short one.
Yeah. So if we take this trip, for instance, I mean, I figured depth 60 to 85 meters. I figured that it's going to be quite a lot of light because it's clear blue water, sorry. And I figured that I probably don't need much light. So in these dives, I decided to dive without any lights. I'd put one light on my model, and that was it. So one big blue light, 65,000 lumen is what I used. For camera, I'm using the Nikon Z9 with 1430 f4 lens behind the VACP2 wet lens from Nauticam, which is a fantastic piece of equipment. And basically, that's what I'm using for camera. My rebreather, I'm using a Divesoft Liberty side mount rebreather. I mean, people tell me you can't dive in the ocean trimix with the side mount. Well, I've done it for a few years now, and I would say you can definitely do that, even in strong currents. It takes a little bit more effort, but it's definitely doable. And so I used the Liberty, and we dove with 3 bailout tanks each. We had a couple of extra tanks on the line. We had tanks that safety divers could come down with. We all had DPVs, that's basically the equipment we use. We were in dry suits. I think I used the Avatar undergarment and the base layer, and that was enough to keep me warm for over 2.5 hours in these waters in May when we did the longer dives. You're muted.
Unmute myself. Yes. We have questions. Let's say, okay, we have one about how do you do the shots? Can you, if possible, can you just take one of the shots you done and then maybe talk us through the settings of the camera? it's kind of hard to do. And then we have the question about the white balance presets and the bracketing, if you are using that when shooting the wracks in that way. Don't get into technical details, but just a bit of that. And then if we want more answers, then we have to visit the Baltic Tech and grab you there on the party.
Yeah. I never use bracketing. I don't use any functions of a camera. Like, there's basically 5 things I use on the camera. There's aperture, there's shutter, there's ISO, and there's focus, and there's a trigger. Those are the 5 functions I use of a camera. So the camera for me is all about how good is the sensor. So it's really that simple. All the other stuff is fancy stuff that you might need in certain kinds of photography. For underwater photography, it's not really necessary, any of the other stuff. You're very limited to time, like I said, at these depths. Like, we're talking 25 minutes, 30 minutes bottom time, and then you have 2.5 hours deco on these depths, on the deeper ones. And so you're very limited on time, and we're also going to cover a wreck that's 140 meters long. So there's not much time to think about what to do. Like, everything has to really be just nailed down. You need to have it down to science already. And what I keep telling people is, like, don't learn underwater. It's kind of unnecessary to burn dives, burn money by learning to do this underwater. You just have to be friends with ISO, aperture, shutter speed. You need to know them inside out, how they work to work with each other, and you just need to use the optimal of everything. And then you have to compromise on the one little part that you can compromise on, and there's always one that's better to compromise on than another, but that's different from every situation. And the only way to read this is by experience. There is no recipe for it. Experience. You need to shoot for many years, and preferably lots topside, because you will develop. I worked in a photo studio for 15 years where I didn't do the most interesting job, and I shot a lot of cosmetics, shoes, handbags, clothes, all kinds of stuff, and it could seem quite boring at many times, but somehow I developed anyway, because photography becomes second nature with exposure, with understanding framing, with understanding. So this is what I mean. Practice on land. It's the only solution. And then of course, one more thing: make sure you shoot raw. That is also the other suggestion I can give. Shoot raw, practice, get very good at understanding the potential of raw, what you can do with it.
Thanks. We had some questions from different people regarding what are the current operators, how much of the gear you bring yourself, how much you can rent. But I think you answered that question, that the area is developing all the time, and then the new centers are opening in the beginning of 2025, the first quarter of 2025.
Mm-hmm.
Linus is asking if you have some more of the shots which from that area which are going to be shown on your Instagram account in the future.
I didn't get that much shots. Like I said, it's short bottom times. This is basically taken from the best of that I got during this visit in May, because the visit that we did in August, there was so hard winds we couldn't go dive any of the deep wrecks. This is why we ended up on the shallow wrecks, which is close to the shore. So I've still only done one dive on each of these wrecks, and yeah, so no, there's not that much more images that I will show. There are a few more, but not that many.
And question from Andreas, it's about the shallow wrecks. How good are those as diving spots? I know I've seen a lot of pictures from them, and they seems to be amazing. So how do you feel about that?
We had fantastic dives on both Lewis and Lundy. I don't remember which one's which, but I think Lewis is the one at 27 meters, I think, and Lundi the one at 13 meters. At Lundi, we had this really, really beautiful afternoon sun, so low light, a low angle at the light. So it was very beautiful to shoot. So, and my model was doing a lot of like nice penetrations under the boilers and stuff like that, with a side mount and no mount and everything. So yeah, we had a fun dive, very fun dive, and same with Lewis. So I would say both those wrecks. I think we thought that we would make quite short dives because they're quite small, and one is quite broken, the other one is less broken. But we ended up doing 70-minute plus dives on both wrecks, so they can't have been that boring. And I would love to go back to both of them. So that's a pretty good verdict for a wreck.
I think we are getting close to the end time. We could, as I said, we could sit here and speak for hours. We had some delay due to me and Alex learning new things about Teams, but we learn a lot. Now we know how to run it, so we will probably run more of the webinars in the future. Thank you very much for joining us, everyone. It's been a lot of people in here. Nice questions, amazing pictures, Alex, and I'm looking forward to meeting with you at Baltic Tech, unless we have time to meet together before.
Yeah.
And I think, as I said, if you have possibility to join us on the Baltic Tech, go diving, practice with the camera, that's the simple recipe. Thanks for this evening, and talk to you soon.
Yes, thank you, everyone, and I hope you learned a little bit about the fantastic area in Gallipoli and Turkey. So thank you for listening.
Bye.
Bye.